Hey guys, Miguel here, and today I'm going to show you what to do first when you buy a used RC car. The first thing you're going to want to do is take a look and assess everything that the vehicle needs for it to be mechanically sound. Alright guys, so as we can see, it really does need a new body, but at this point it's really not essential, and we just want to know what it's going to take to get the car in runnable condition. So right off the bat, we notice that it's missing the air filter. It's not really a big deal at the moment, but it is something to know. Next, you want to make sure that the carb is working properly, that it opens all the way and closes all the way without any resistance. Ours did have resistance and it was seized up when we got it, but we just soaked a little nitro in there, and in about a couple hours to a day, depending how bad it is, it should loosen itself right up. Next, we're going to check the electronics, and by that we're going to remove the receiver pack and put it on the charger so we can still be working on the vehicle. Now that it's on the charger, we can flip this back over and keep working. Alright, if there's nothing broken, the next thing we're going to do is take a look at the suspension and make sure that it's operating smoothly without any friction. So with this one, we can hear that the shocks aren't really completely full of oil. That's not ideal, and it's going to affect our dampening. And we're definitely going to want to take the shocks apart. And they're not leaking, luckily, but we definitely want to empty that old oil and put some nice new shock oil in there. I recommend going with whatever the factory setting is first and get that. After checking the suspension, we're going to look at the drivetrain. Especially on a nitro, it's very important that the brakes and like the one-way are all operating correctly. So to check the brakes, we're just going to operate the servo. That seems to be working quite all right. So after we check the brakes and make sure they're working, we're going to look at the drivetrain. This is a nitro and it has a forward and reverse servo. We don't know if the servo works just yet, but we can operate the gearbox and make sure it's working. Right now, it is in forward, and we can pull the servo by hand, and right there it engages into reverse. So we know that's working well, we can check that off the list. The next thing we're going to do is take the spur gear cover off and make sure the spur gear and the pinion gear are in good shape. Alright, so once you get the cover off, you're going to look at the pinion gear and the spur gear, and we can see that this one is in quite good condition. At least the first gear is. We can't really tell from this angle about the second gear because it is a 2-speed transmission. So you just want to take a look-see, and that looks to be alright as well, so we can check another thing off the list. As we can see, this car also has a slipper clutch system, and you can take this out and visually inspect it, but you won't really know if it needs one or not until you run the vehicle. Alright, since this is a nitro, we're going to assume it's going to need a new glow plug, fuel line, and fuel filter. And that's just because they're inexpensive parts that are easy to replace and are going to save you a lot of headache in the future. So now we're going to rotate the motor by hand. First, we're going to loosen the glow plug so pressure doesn't build up. Alright, so this car uses a starter stick, so we're just going to use that to turn the engine by hand and feel if the engine's got good pinch, good compression, and it's not seized. And this one seems to have all, so we're good on that front. Tighten your glow plug back up. Alright guys, so the battery finished charging, so we'll be able to test our electronics now. Plug it in. So far so good. Get your remote, turn it on first. Next, flip the switch. No smoke, so that's a good sign. Everything seems to be working, so good. We can check that off the list now. Alright, so continuing with the drivetrain, we're gonna feel the differentials and see if there's any crunchiness in them. Let's start off with the back. Feels pretty good, pretty smooth. Let's go to the front. Well, that's not ideal. As you can clearly hear and tell, there is something very wrong with this differential. So, to make sure what's wrong with our differential, we're gonna have to take it apart. Okay, so now that we have the diff out, we can put the car a little bit to the side and take apart the diff itself. Okay guys, since it is a differential, you don't want to get really all of this dirt and grit on it, so the first thing I'm going to do is, well, clean off the diff case itself because it is pretty nasty. So grab some Simple Green. Okay guys, for this case specifically, it's pretty easy. On the top, you can just take off the 3 screws and it should come apart pretty easily. Okay guys, once you remove the 3 screws, you might need a flathead to pry it apart. Okay guys, once you get the diff apart, we can see that the grease inside is filled with metal particles. Let's take the diff itself out. And well, there's your problem. The diff case itself just kind of, well, shattered is the best way to put this. I'm really not sure why this happened. It is the used car, so we really don't know the history about it. But yeah, we'll put this aside for a sec. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is wipe down the inside of the diff case because it's, well, disgusting. Okay, now to the exciting part. Okay, so now we're actually going to take the diff apart. Yeah, it is apart technically, but we really can't get to anything right now, so let's get to it. Gloves would not be a bad idea for this situation, if we're honest. I didn't expect it to be this, well, disgusting. Well, I just broke them. So the rest of the diff case just kind of broke in my hand when I was loosening that screw. So this can go straight into the trash can. You can just tell how old and brittle the plastic became with the grease. If it's a plastic housing like this is, you really don't want to use grease in your diff because it's a petroleum-based product and it will make the plastic brittle. So here's our new diff housing, and we also got new planetary gear set. And sadly, it does not come with the O-ring, so we will have to reuse this O-ring. We'll clean it. It's still pretty soft, so we'll clean it off and put it in the new one. So you're gonna want to be careful with this. Don't break it taking it out. Now you can throw away the rest of your gearbox. So we're gonna take our old bevel gears, and since the kit comes with new of everything, we're gonna throw these away. Okay, so we're gonna clean off the old O-ring now. The first thing that goes on the new diff case is the bearing. The next thing we're going to put on is the outdrive. Clean it off a little bit, especially the part that goes inside. Kind of put it in and drop the O-ring in there, kind of hold it in place as you bring it up, and then just push the O-ring down a little bit. So the next thing we're going to put on is the pin that holds the outdrive. Okay, so we got the pin in there. Now we can put the new bevel gears in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to put is this bevel gear. Should be pretty easy, just kind of hold it until it just slides in place. Okay, so next you're going to get one of the shafts that goes in the middle. Put one of the gears in, don't let it go all the way down. Put a shim on the end of it. Hold it. Put a gear. Put a shim. These only require one per. Put it in. You will need to twist. So you will need to put that in, and you'll want the flat part facing up. Next, we'll put in the other set. Pretty easy, you put the gear in, facing in. Facing in. Now you grab it, put it on top, and make sure they join up together. Both flat parts are against each other. Now we're ready to install the ring gear, and since it's so dirty, you'll want to take a paper towel and get all the grit and old grease out. Okay, so once you have that cleaned up, you're going to want to put the pin back in. Okay. Put the bevel gear on. And now is not really the tricky bit, but the one that you have to be careful with. So you're going to take your diff oil. If you're doing this for tuning purposes, use whatever you want. If you're just rebuilding from stock, make sure you look up what your OEM uses. This uses grease originally, so we can expect a little bit of leakage from it, but as you saw, it is meant to take oil because it has the everything, doesn't it? So if you're using really thick stuff, like 30,000 or pretty much anything heavier, you're gonna wanna twist it around like this so it gets in everywhere, and kind of just wait for any big air bubbles to come out. It's not super necessary, but it is necessary if you're doing this for tuning purposes. So a little trick you can use so the bevel gear doesn't fall off, is put a tiny bit of diff oil, especially if it's super thick like this, and use it to hold the bevel gear on. So there we go. Clean it off a bit. Now it feels like a differential again. Excellent. So now we're going to put the new pinion on. Make sure you put the same shim and washer combo. So it goes shim, bearing, washer, bearing. So it should look like that. It is different for all vehicles, so make sure metal on metal gears are going to sound loud. Now we're ready to put the case back together. Whenever you're screwing metal into metal, you're going to want to put a little bit of blue Loctite, not red. I know it's in a red bottle, it is blue. And you're going to put just a little dab of it. You can barely see it. It really doesn't need to be a whole lot. Now once we have this put back together, we can put it back in the car. Okay guys, so we got the diff put back together. It's all working well now. There's only one last thing we need to do before we get this car up and running. That's put on a new air filter, so let's do that now. Alright guys, so hopefully after watching this video you can take your used RC car and make it as reliable and fun as the day rolled off the factory floor. Thanks for watching.